Welcome to Smells Like Teen Parent, a podcast for adolescents and the adults who annoy them. I'm Jenny DeBevick, a nationally certified counselor with 20 years experience working with youth. In our last episode, we explored the value of using humor in parenting. And in this episode, we are delving into a two-part series on how we can support our LGBTQ plus youth.
How does your school approach LGBTQ students?
At my school, we have the Gender Sexuality Alliance, the GSA club. So students can join that to get support from other students in the LGBTQ community. And then I know we have safe bathrooms. Students don't feel comfortable changing in one bathroom, like the girls or the boys' bathroom. They can have their own separate bathroom to change it.
How does your school support LGBTQ plus students, if at all?
There are lots of LGBT people at school that are being supported, but there's just not there's no clubs for it. There's no awareness for it, really. It's just kind of people are and no one cares.
These episodes are a profound exploration of how we can come together to provide the vital support, understanding, and acceptance that our LGBTQ plus youth deserve. Amidst the backdrop of research, we are honored to be joined by a great group of student contributors. I'm also lucky enough to interview a true advocate and expert in the realm of parenting LGBTQ plus youth, Heather Hester. Heather is a visionary founder of Chrysalis Mama, an organization dedicated to supporting families on their journey of understanding and acceptance. Her wisdom and guidance extend even further through her podcast, Just Breathe, Parenting Your LGBTQ plus Youth Teen, where she compassionately imparts her knowledge to parents seeking guidance in this realm. Just take a quick moment and follow, rate, download this episode to spread the word. Just one little share and download helps me so much to continue the efforts to make parenting our teens a little more informed and a lot more joyful. This episode is brought to you in part by Tomboy X. Tomboy builds silky, soft, and long-lasting premium underwear for all bodies. They're committed to designing inclusive and sustainable products that help customers feel comfortable in their own skin. Scientific research has gifted us with invaluable insights into the world of the LGBTQ plus community. According to groundbreaking findings from the Williams Institute, there are nearly 2 million individuals between the ages of 13 and 17 who proudly identify as LGBTQ+. This statistic underscores the importance of acknowledging and embracing the diversity within our youth. Research conducted by Trevor Project shows that having just one accepting adult in their lives can reduce the risk of suicide by 40%.
Teachers are fairly progressive and offer us different documents about each week of how we're feeling, different things about that, if we have any problems with them. So I feel most of my teachers make themselves an outlet for any problems that we may face when it comes to just mental health or things with LGBTQ plus. And they make it aware that they're always very accepting of any problems we may face, or they make it very aware that they're very supportive of any decisions or ways that we identify.
Are there any clubs or anything like that on campus?
No. But also because it is a Catholic school, I don't know if people are no, you can't do that.
Great question.
Yeah.
When young people reach out to us, anxious, depressed, or overwhelmed, they receive the support and affirmation they deserve. The adverse health and educational consequences for transgender and non-binary students are even greater than those for lesbian, gay, and bisexual students. Yet students with supportive adults in their lives are less likely to feel unsafe or to miss school, and more likely to have higher GPAs, to pursue post-secondary education, and to feel a greater sense of belonging in school. School counselors, like me, recognize the overall goal is to ensure the safety, comfort, and healthy development of all students, maximizing inclusion and social integration while minimizing exclusion and stigmatization. Now let's check in with Heather Hester, who explores her own remarkable journey as a parent of children identifying as LGBTQ plus youth. She shares with us her own grappling with the issues of morality, religious beliefs, and misconceptions about gender and sexuality, mental health concerns, as well as parenting rights.
You've been on a journey.
I have been on a journey, yes. It has been quite extraordinary. It has been lovely. There are many moments that I would not have used that word.
It's hard.
It's been very difficult. It's been excruciating at times. It is absolutely stripped me down to my core and remade me. You know, I kind of say like that pivotal point, like everybody has those like really pivotal points in their lives, or most people do, where they can look back and say, like, this is the moment in time when my life, I could have taken one route or the other route, and I chose this way, right? And my life has changed forever. Connor's coming out was one of those moments in time.
Take us back there. Can I just like take us back there? When did that happen?
Absolutely, yes. So Connor came out as gay on, which you're gonna laugh, I'm like, February 9th, 2017. He had 4 little kids. You know, he was 16, and then the younger 3 were 13, 11, and 9. So just all over the place, and was, you know, fortunate enough to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. And, you know, for context of the story, I grew up in a very conservative Christian home. The basis for a lot of my life up to that point, that's what I knew. That's how I'd been taught. That is not how we did not carry that over into our household as far as how we were raising our kids. We made a lot of kind of unintentional but intentional pivots. However, that being said, there was that kind of basis, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Still part of the value system that you grew up in. So it leaks in, right?
It leaks in. Exactly. Yes. My husband grew up Catholic, and yes. So,
and even if we're we perceive ourselves as the most enlightened, understanding parents in the world, these things come at us and we are
leveled.
I mean, perfect word.
Yes. And that is exactly what we were. And especially because of the way that it happened. So he had run away. And so my mom called me. She was like, Connor's gone. He's missing. We can't find him. And I was like, okay, well, have you called, this person and this person? Like really trying to be like calm. Like she was panicking. I'm like, well, let's check in with the friends first. Like this is really unlike him, but let's not panic yet. And finally left him a message. And I was like, look, we're really, really worried. I cannot find you. Your location is off. I'm calling the police. And within a minute or two, he called me back and he was just hysterically crying. He's like, Mom, I have to tell you something. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And he was like, I'm gay. And I was like, I don't care. That's great. I thought you were dead. Like,
you're like, get your ass back home and we'll figure it out.
That's exactly it. I mean, it literally was like, just get home. It's like 10 below zero outside. Fast forward, we come home and don't say anything to my parents. I'm like, don't worry about grandma and grandpa. I will handle them. Just go home and be safe and we will be home. And so, we get home, we start, right? And we are just like, whoa. I mean, first of all, whoa, because we did not see it coming. Second of all, it was one of those moments where I was like, I remember like standing there and being like, everything that I have been taught and told my whole life cannot possibly be true. This is my kid. Like my kid is not going to hell. That cannot be a real thing. And I need to figure this out. And we are going to learn what we have to learn. And my husband was 1000% on board with that. His whole thing at the beginning, which people, giggle about, and especially dads giggle about, is that he was just like, I just don't understand it because he has a terrible sense of fashion. But he really was just so stuck on that. He's just like, I'm like, he's 16. Like, what 16-year-old boy do you know, gay or straight, that has a good sense of fashion? The next 18 months were really, really difficult because he went from being, very typical oldest child, that like overachiever, the pleaser, very much of a pleaser, and just spiraled, like everything spiraled, fell into a really deep depression, lots of self-loathing, which at the time we were just scrambling. We had no idea, like, how do we support this kid? Like, we need to learn so much.
And when you're in it and you're also looking at your adult community and wondering, like, who's going to support me and who's going to judge me? And I found that part of the puzzle really surprising. The people who I thought would be supportive, who have been judgmental, and the people who could have been judgmental have been ultra supportive.
And I was so afraid of, people judging Connor, it being any more difficult than it already was. Who could we tell? Who could he tell safely? That was one of my, keeping him safe. And again, we live north of Chicago, so we are in a relatively progressive area. We were trying to find support pieces for him, support pieces for us, accurate information for both of us, trying to stay ahead of him, which we didn't for a very long time. I mean, he was just like jumping from, one coping mechanism, maladaptive coping mechanism, to the next faster than we could stay on top of it and learn about, right?
Right. The kids are faster at this. They're faster at adapting because we grow up with them thinking our kid is one thing or one way. And then they surprise us. And then we're trying to like get on that train. And they're like, oh, I've already gotten on this other train.
Like if they really want to do stuff, they're going to figure it out.
So the answer isn't like that authoritarian monitoring clamp down. It's what is it then?
The answer is communication, education, and being really uncomfortable. I mean, I think that is one of the biggest things I've learned is it's okay to be uncomfortable, and it's okay to not know. It's very humbling when we finally like kind of stripped away all of that, like all the things you do out of fear, and that idea of, well, this is what a parent's supposed to do. A parent is supposed to control, and a parent's supposed to be in charge. And I remember a friend of ours at one point saying, well, you guys lost control a long time ago. And I remember thinking, what an odd comment to make. Control's an illusion, right?
It does reveal another level of truth. When my kid came out and then came out as trans, I got a lot of feedback from adult people, caring, well-meaning, but a lot of judgment around like, well, you can just tell them no, or tell them that's not acceptable, or
they can't be who they are.
They're already in it.
And they've been there for months, if not years, before they let us in on it. And that is one of the biggest things. And I'm sure you found this too, where when you're having these conversations with people that are like, it's a choice, or they just decided, or it's a lifestyle, like all the lovely
phase. Phrases.
It's a phase, which one of my
faves. It's attention seeking.
And I think this child realized eons before it ever came out of their mouth, before they ever started expressing it in a way that we could see it, right, in the physical world. This is something that they have been wrestling with and negotiating. And, I think that is like one of the number one biggest things that I wish I would have known when Connor came out, because I feel like I could have been on top of other things so much more quickly, because it took me so long to get there, to like understand that and to be like, oh, okay, well, he's already been through all of this. So this is where he is now. And this is how I can support him. And these are the kind of supports that he needs. And this is why he's feeling so much self-loathing. And this is perhaps what's coming at him from external sources that I cannot see. I have no access to. I can't control.
And you mentioned that word support. And I'm curious about like one of our challenges as adult caregivers is like, how do we support our kid? How do we advocate for them? It's still their journey ultimately, but we're also in our own journey. It's like a new part of our identity. And how do we advocate for our kid that's hard to get used to. I think I'm sort of learning how to do that and really just proactively advocate for what my kid and it's easier with other kids, but with my own kid, it's harder.
It is a lot harder. Yes, I agree. The shifts that we're making. And, for many of us, we have kids who are teenagers. So not only have they come out as gay or trans or, whatever, sexual orientation or gender identity, these beautiful things, they're teenagers. So, that's just a whole other layer of development that it's like this constant, like, okay, is this developmentally appropriate because they're teenagers? Do I need to be concerned? Or is this, because they're struggling with something having to do with their orientation or identity? I remember sitting in the advisor's office shortly before we had to pull Connor out of school for that time. And, just crying and just, we were talking about like, what do we do and how do we, help this kid? And I was just like, it's like everything that you ever envision for your child just blows up, right? And I was like, it's like a movie reel. Like you have this vision, and it really starts from like the day that they're born, right? And probably even before they're born, that you start this like movie reel of all the things. And because we live in a heteronormative and a cisnormative world, that is the default. All of that just blows up.
Right in the center, doesn't it? It puts you right in the
does.
moment of like, this is our reality.
Uncomfortable as it is to like let that blow up and feel it, sit in that and be uncomfortable and feel it, because I think that's a really important part of the process and of our process as parents. But then to let that go and be like, all right, this is where we're going. This is where we are. This is who my child is. And, our options are love this kid for who they are right now in this moment in time. It's the only relationship if you want to have a real, authentic relationship with your child.
It's really a call, that hero's journey. They're calling us to be like, come, we're changing this movie. Yep. This is no longer a rom-com. Something a little darker. How have the siblings come into the picture? How have they rallied, and what's their journey been like? I'm sort of asking you to speak for them, so I apologize if they listen to this and they're like, Mom, that's not the case at all. You don't even know.
Well, I'm sure, now that they are 20, 18, and almost 16, they have all three had very, very different experiences with it. So my 20-year-old Isabel and Connor have always been close. We kind of had like, it was like Connor and Isabel, and then Grace and Rowan. And Connor told Isabel almost immediately. We found out, thankfully, it was only about 6 months of time, but in that 6 months of time, he was telling her everything. He was sharing everything with her. And she was 13 and very just like takes everything, and has like all four of my kids have their own flavor of mental health struggles. So hers was very much anxiety driven. And so this just did not help at all, because she was carrying and she wanted to be there for him and she wanted to support him, but it was just so much for her to handle. That became like a new piece to the kind of another layer to, okay, now we've really got to work with her, and like, what does she need? And like really being present for her, not only to be able to talk with us, but to get her supports, right? Because
therapy.
Just therapy. Yes.
Right. Can we just give a plug to therapy? Oh, good for everyone, good for children. We're destigmatized now. Can we all just?
It is. I am a huge proponent of therapy. I believe it should be part of everybody's self-care. It is just an objective person that you can talk to. It is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to my life. And my kids too. And my husband, who even, he even goes. He's so cute. I even go. So proud of himself.
And men need it too. That's a whole other episode, but just how we ask the men in our lives to show up and get in touch with their feelings and get in touch with that emotional discomfort.
It is something that for a while he really was like, oh, we'll do the family therapy. We'll do the couples thing. We'll do, these things over here, but I'm good. I'm fine. And then finally was like, I'm not fine. And being able to ask for that was huge, right? To be able to identify that and ask for it was huge. Good year later, when Connor shared with Grace and Rowan that he was gay. And it was actually when he was away, when he was in North Carolina at the therapeutic boarding school. And we were there for spring break visiting him. That's talk about the wild and crazy things you do. This little tea house, and you're like sitting on all these cushions, and he'd like prepared a speech. He was so excited to tell them and share with them, and he was in such a good place. And so he's like telling them, and and Grace just kind of takes it in, and Rowan looks at him and he's like, I think you might be the bravest person I know. He's 10. He was 10 years old. It was just such a beautiful thing. And Connor was so touched. Kind of fast forward, Isabel has continued to be a confidant, but has also had a lot of supports in place between therapy and me and friends and all, and just growing Grace definitely had some struggle. She was very angry once she found out that we had not been telling her things. And she had seen things happen that she didn't understand what was going on. And we had determined at the time she was too young to be told exactly what was going on. And I still stand by that decision, that she was too young to know exactly what was going on. And she's beginning to come around to that. But for a few years there, she was really angry.
We can only do so much, right? Making the decision that we can.
And in the moment, you make those like split second decisions or, in the moment decisions where you're kind of assessing everybody and you're like, yeah, 12 is probably a little young to understand why Connor's climbing out his window in the middle of the night.
You're just going to have to answer a lot of follow-up questions.
Correct. And now we have all these conversations and discuss it. We did have to go through some time of, some pretty intense therapy and just work and just raw discussions. Lots of lessons learned. She has since come out herself. I think that was also part of her journey, is that she had begun to realize through all of this, like, I'm recognizing some things, but I'm not so sure. And Connor was certainly not quite in a place for her to be able to discuss it with him. Right. So I think there were just a lot of those little pieces that were difficult at the time.
And it's still unfolding. They're right on this precipice of young adulthood. For you to get behind your kid and to support him. I was just reading a statistic on Trevor Project that, like, having even just one caring adult can reduce suicide by 40%. Those are some of the conversations that I'm having to have with other adults who are sort of skeptical about why I indulge my trans child. And, I have to lay out, like, if we don't, here's what the stakes are. When your kid goes off to the mental ward for a week, suddenly you realize, here's what the stakes really are.
Right. I mean, it strips away a lot of the BS.
It sure does.
Right.
What helped you as that BS was getting all stripped away?
I circle back to therapy. I mean, I'm eternally grateful to my therapist. I've always been a big journaler, and certainly through all of this have journaled a ton. But I really have turned to a lot of like meditation and really good self-care, like listening to myself and not being dependent on, well, this person says I should do this, and my mom believes this, and now she's mad, and so over here thinks that my kid is going to hell, and all the external noise, learning to just shut that out, just really listen to self and be tuned into my kids and to my husband. It's been a lot of work in that way. Everyone has the right to believe whatever they want to believe. Someone else's belief system is absolutely theirs, and I do not judge them, and I do not wish to be judged for mine. That is not something that I always believed. So shifting to that and to really kind of tapping into, what is it that I believe? Like, what is important? What really does feel true? Lots of shifting, probably every, aspect of your life that you could possibly think of. That is what has occurred. So I don't think it was like one specific shift. I think it was lots of different ones. And talking about it, like, I have learned to, share these things. Like, when my kids ask, I share. And if I mess up, I apologize.
That's a huge piece right there. That's so hard for parents to wrap their minds around, that we can apologize and we still can be the parents. We still have authority.
Absolutely.
Just because we apologize to our kid.
When you apologize, you're actually modeling, right? So any of these pieces that we share, like, it's a teaching moment. Like, it's not just you're apologizing for something that you said or that you did. You're also saying it's okay to, like, this is how you create a really good, authentic, connected relationship with someone. And I'm still your mom, right?
And our connection is more important than my ego.
1000%. So
planting that there, adult people.
Yes.
It's okay to apologize to your kid.
It's okay to apologize to your kid. It really is. I mean, that's been another great gift along the way that I've been like, oh yeah. And the way that your kids respond to it is so cool.
It blows their little doggy mind, actually.
It does. I mean, still when I do it, they're kind of like, well, this is cool, right? Because
you got some cool mom points.
You get some cool mom points, which is like an unintended effect, but it makes you more approachable. I mean, I find that they tell me so much more. It just opens things up. So you become more and more safe place because you're more and more human to them instead of this like mom or parent up here on this high pedestal of perfection, right? It lets them know it's okay to make mistakes because we're all human. I'm just an older human who happened to birth you.
You have slightly more wrinkles than you.
You'll
get there.
Like this. This is all that happened. My gravity happened.
Many emotions, long nights. I had a kid ask me, he's like, how old are you? Are you 100? And I said, yes, I am.
Yes.
I look good for 100.
Right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What advice would you have for parents who are just sort of starting this journey?
2 things. Love them. Just love them. Let them know that they are loved. And see them. Don't be afraid to see them. And don't you be afraid. And this is more for you. Like, don't you be afraid to actually see them. Because I think for the longest time, we see what we want to see. We don't see who they are. So take off that, whether you want to think of it as glasses or whatever, you're a film. I challenge you to see them. And it's going to be uncomfortable. Embrace that. Uncomfortable's good. Uncomfortable means you're growing.
What happens when we see our kid for who they are?
Well, first of all, and most importantly, kind of back to your Trevor Project statistics, you can pretty much take those statistics off the table.
When you see your kid.
When you see your kid, when they feel seen and heard, that's huge. Second, they will share so much more. So what might, in one case, take 6 months to work through might take 3 because they feel that much more comfortable talking with you or sharing or just kind of working through what they're working through instead of like keeping it all bottled up because they're afraid of your response or afraid of what you're going to say.
Just the ultimate acceptance. I feel like that message that you just shared can be applied to so many different themes: self-harm, suicidal ideation, eating disorders, all these maladaptive things that we see cropping up at this age. When kids are seen, it's like it allows them to heal so quickly.
It does, because so many of those coping mechanisms are because they're afraid and because they don't feel seen. And that's not to say that you have done anything wrong. It's most parents don't know how to do it.
We haven't been taught.
We have not been taught. There's no manual for any of this. And it's going to feel awkward and messy, but just do it. Like they don't care. Actually, the more awkward and messy it is, the more your kids like it because it just feels real to them because they're awkward and messy. I mean,
they have a huge bandwidth for awkward and messy.
They really do. You know, if you notice when you have like the most perfect polished speech, that's when they glaze over the quickest. There is no faster way to lose your kid than
those old sort of models, the way we maybe conducted ourselves with kids or we teach in classrooms, that is no longer working. But what we get to replace it with maybe is a more authentic, if not awkward and messy, relationship.
Exactly. And I don't think it's always that way. That doesn't mean it's always going to be awkward and messy, but it definitely starts out that way just because it's something that's new. And it's something that
we make room for it.
There's nothing like a teenage child to just bring you to your knees.
I think you're glowing actually from this. You are on the other side. Thank you. I can't wait to read your book.
In my website, I'm sure you notice I have my tagline is embrace, educate, empower, and love. And so I built it on those pillars. So it's, kind of walking through those pillars and really lots of like using those pillars to support your child.
Thanks for bringing that into the world, along with Connor, Isabel, Grace, and Rowan.
I am grateful. I'm just grateful. That's my biggest thing all the time. Just whenever I start to have moments, I'm like, this is pretty amazing.
Thank you so much, Heather. You can learn more about her advocacy efforts by checking out chrysalismama.com or tuning into her splendid podcast, Just Breathe, which we can all do right now. Supporting our LGBTQ plus youth is a journey that hits close to home for me, as I too am a parent of a teenager who identifies as transgender. It's a path filled with unique challenges, but it's important to remember that LGBTQ plus youth in many ways are just like their peers. You don't need to be an expert in all things LGBTQ plus to make a meaningful difference in their lives. Start by listening, uninterrupted, to their experiences. Embrace any discomfort you may feel and seek support from understanding individuals who won't judge you or your child. Show respect for these kids by using their preferred pronouns and or living names. These small acts demonstrate that you value their autonomy and love them unconditionally. For many LGBTQ plus youth, coming out to their immediate family can be the most daunting step. Students have shared that once they feel their parents are truly supportive, they gain the strength to face whatever lies ahead, regardless of how your child identifies. Saying those words we all long to hear, "I'm here for you, I love you, and I've got your back, no matter what," can make all the difference in the world. Well, that's it for this episode. A heartfelt thank you to our student contributors and our dedicated advocate, Heather Hester. Join us in part 2 of Smells Like Teen Parent series, where we delve into organizations committed to nurturing the next generation of LGBTQ plus youth leaders. And a special thanks to all of you, our listeners far and wide, for sharing, rating, and downloading this episode within your communities. May you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be free from suffering, and don't forget to wear sunscreen every day.